Good Tuesday morning, Patriots. I'm John O'Connor, and this is O'Connor's Right Stand. I need to start today's episode with a heavy heart and honest emotion, because we've lost something irreplaceable in this country. As most of you know by now, we've lost Charlie Kirk. When I recorded my last episode about the Charlotte light rail tragedy and the failure of our justice system, I had no idea that within minutes we'd be witnessing an even more devastating example of how violence and evil are being unleashed on good people in America. Charlie Kirk, husband, father, conservative warrior, and one of the most important voices of the younger generation, was assassinated while doing what he did best, engaging with young people and defending the truth on a college campus. Patriots, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've been struggling to find the right words to discuss this. I toyed with how to approach this episode and have honestly been hoping time would stop so I wouldn't have to do this episode at all. On my walks since Wednesday, I've been struggling with how to approach it. What would Charlie have wanted? What do I want out of it myself? And what do you want out of this edition that you haven't heard a million times by now? Some of this will be new and some old. Well, for better or worse, this is my best attempt at trying to appease all of us. Charlie Kirk wasn't just a conservative media figure to me. He was someone I admired, someone whose courage and conviction inspired millions of us to keep fighting for what's right. And now he's gone, murdered by a 22-year-old radical leftist who couldn't handle hearing ideas that challenged his worldview. And being in my younger 40s, maybe this strikes something in me because I wasn't around for JFK or MLK. I mean, I was around for Steve Scalise, and that bothered me, but he didn't die. He made it through. So did Trump. And so did Reagan, which I don't remember Reagan. I was a little too young for that. But not only did I respect Charlie, he was also younger than me. And now he's gone, without being able to see his full potential. Today we're going to honor Charlie's memory by telling his story, the incredible journey of an 18-year-old kid from Chicago who built the largest conservative youth movement in American history. We're going to talk about what he accomplished, what he stood for, and why his death represents not just a personal tragedy, but an assault on the very principles that make America great. Now, this is generally where I would start and say the right stand starts now and throw my music entry in, but I'm just not in the mood. So let's just dive right into it. Charlie was born on October 14, 1993 in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Just a regular kid growing up in the Chicago suburbs. But even as a teenager, Charlie had something that set him apart. An unshakable belief in American values and the courage to stand up for what he believed in, even when it wasn't popular. At just 18 years old, while most kids his age were worried about college parties and figuring out their majors, Charlie had a vision that would change American politics forever. He saw that conservative voices were being silenced on college campuses, that young people were being indoctrinated with leftist ideology, and that somebody needed to fight back. So he did what few people dare to do. He dropped out of college and dedicated his life to the cause. That was 2012, Patriots. Charlie was 18 years old when he co-founded Turning Point USA with Bill Montgomery, a retired marketing entrepreneur who believed in Charlie's vision. They started in a garage with no money, no connections, and according to Charlie himself, no idea what I was doing. But what they had was more powerful than money or connections. They had truth, passion, and an uncompromising commitment to conservative principles. What Charlie built over the next 13 years is nothing short of miraculous. Turning Point USA grew from a garage startup to the largest conservative youth organization in America, with a presence on over 3,500 high school and college campuses, more than 250,000 student members, and over 450 full and part-time staff across the country. Charlie turned what started as a simple idea into a political powerhouse that helped elect Donald Trump, not once, but twice. But here's what made Charlie special. it wasn't just about the numbers or the political victories. It was about his heart for young people and his absolute fearlessness in the face of opposition. Charlie would go on to the most hostile college campuses in America, sit at his famous Prove Me Wrong table, and invite anyone and everyone to challenge his ideas. He didn't hide behind security or talking points. He engaged directly with students who often hated everything he stood for. And he did it with intelligence, passion, and genuine care for their intellectual development. If you've ever watched Charlie Kirk in action on a college campus, you witnessed something truly extraordinary. Here was a young man who could take on dozens of hostile students, answer their questions with facts and logic, and never lose his cool or his conviction. Charlie didn't just debate ideas, he embodied them. He showed young conservatives that it was possible to be both intelligent and uncompromising, both respectful and relentless. Charlie's approach to campus activism revolutionized conservative politics. Before Turning Point USA, conservative students felt isolated and overwhelmed on their campuses. Charlie gave them a voice, a community, and most importantly, the tools and confidence to fight back against leftist indoctrination. He showed them that they didn't have to accept the lies about America's history, about capitalism, about traditional values. They could stand up and fight for the truth. His podcast, The Charlie Kirk Show, became one of the most popular political podcasts in America, regularly ranking in the top 10 on Apple Podcasts. By 2021, his social media reached over 100 million people per month. Axios listed him as one of the top 10 most engaged Twitter handles in the world. But Charlie never let the fame go to his head. He remained focused on the mission of awakening young Americans to conservative principles. What made Charlie so effective wasn't just his debating skills or his media savvy. It was his genuine love for America and his unwavering faith in Jesus Christ. Charlie understood that conservatism isn't just a political philosophy. It's a worldview rooted in internal truths about human nature. The importance of family, the dignity of work, and the necessity of limited government. He didn't just argue for conservative policies. He lived conservative values. Beyond all the political activism and media appearances, Charlie Kirk was a devoted husband and father. He married Erica Kirk in 2021, a former Miss Arizona USA, who shared his values and his commitment to faith. Together they had 2 beautiful children, a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son who will now grow up without their father. In her first public remarks after Charlie's murder, Erica showed the same strength and grace that made her husband so special. Fighting back tears, she declared, "To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. All of us will refuse to let that happen." Honestly, I believe her. I think they have awoken a beast within Erica, and I think Turning Point will be bigger than Charlie could have ever dreamed. That's the kind of family Charlie built, one founded on shared principles, mutual respect, and an unwavering commitment to something bigger than themselves. Charlie often talked about his desire to be remembered for courage for my faith, and anyone who knew him understood that his family came first, even before his political mission. The tragedy of Charlie's death isn't just that we lost a political leader. It's that 2 young children lost their father, and a devoted wife lost her husband. Charlie Kirk should have had decades ahead of him to watch his children grow up, to build his marriage, to continue his work of awakening young Americans to conservative principles. Instead, all that was stolen from him by a twisted individual who couldn't tolerate hearing ideas that challenged his worldview. What happened on September 10th, 2025, at Utah Valley University represents everything that's wrong with political discourse in America today. Charlie was doing what he'd done hundreds and hundreds of times before, engaging with students at his signature Prove Me Wrong event. He had thrown hats to the crowd, was answering questions, and was about 20 minutes into his presentation when evil struck. At 12:23 p.m. Mountain Time, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson fired a single shot from a high-powered bolt-action rifle from a rooftop about 200 yards away. The bullet struck Charlie in the neck, and within minutes, one of America's most important conservative voices was silenced forever. The whole horrific attack was captured on video. Charlie grabbing his neck, blood pouring from the wound, and then collapsing as 3,000 students scattered in terror. Robinson had arrived on campus earlier that morning in a gray Dodge Challenger, changed into dark clothing, and methodically planned his assassination. He climbed through stairwells to reach the rooftop, positioned himself for the shot, and then fled into nearby woods where he abandoned his weapon. The rifle was later found engraved with transgender and anti-fascist ideology, making clear that this was a politically motivated assassination. For more than 33 hours, Robinson evaded capture while FBI agents, state police, and local authorities conducted one of the largest manhunts in Utah history. It was only when his own father recognized him from photographs released by authorities and convinced him to turn himself in. Think about that. This killer's own family had to turn him in because his hatred had consumed him so completely. What turned Tyler Robinson into a killer? According to Utah Governor Spencer Cox, Robinson's family described his politics as veering left in recent years as he spent large amounts of time scrolling the dark corners of the internet. Robinson had discussed Charlie Kirk with family members during a dinner conversation, expressing hatred for Kirk's viewpoints and calling him someone who was full of hate and spreading hate. This is what happens when young people are fed a steady diet of leftist propaganda that dehumanizes conservatives and teaches them that opposing viewpoints are not just wrong, but evil. Robinson wasn't born a killer. He was radicalized by the same toxic ideology that tells young people that conservatives are Nazis, that America is irredeemably racist, and that violence against the oppressor class is justified. Robinson was registered to vote with no party affiliation, was listed as an inactive voter, meaning he hadn't participated in recent elections. But his social media activity and the engravings of it on his murder weapon make clear that he had been consuming radical leftist content that convinced him that Charlie Kirk represented such a threat to marginalized communities that assassination was justified. This is the logical endpoint of the rhetoric we hear from the left every single day. When you constantly tell people that conservatives are fascists and threats to democracy, when you dehumanize anyone who disagrees with progressive orthodoxy, when you create an environment where conservative speakers need security just to speak on college campuses, you create the conditions for political violence. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is a devastating loss for the conservative movement, but it cannot and will not stop what he started. In the days since his death, Turning Point USA has seen a surge in requests for new campus chapters. Young conservatives across America are stepping up to carry on Charlie's mission of engaging hostile audiences and defending American values. President Trump immediately ordered flags to be flown at half-staff and announced that Charlie would posthumously receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The memorial service at State Farm Stadium in Arizona is expected to draw tens of thousands of people who want to honor Charlie's memory. Conservative leaders from across the country have spoken about Charlie's impact on their own activism and commitment to the cause. But Charlie's real legacy isn't measured in awards or attendance at memorial services. It's measured in the hundreds of thousands of young Americans who found their voice because of his courage. Charlie showed an entire generation of conservatives that they didn't have to be silent in the face of leftist intimidation, that they could stand up for their beliefs with intelligence and conviction, and that the conservative message could win when articulated clearly and passionately. Charlie Kirk proved that one person with courage and conviction could change the course of American politics. He took the conservative movement from defense to offense, from hiding to engaging, from apologizing to attacking. He showed young conservatives that they had nothing to be ashamed of and everything to fight for. Charlie's assassination didn't happen in a vacuum. It's part of a broader pattern of violence and intimidation directed at conservative voices in America. We've seen Republican congressmen shot at baseball practice, Supreme Court justices threatened at their homes, and conservative speakers requiring armed security just to speak on college campuses. The left has created a climate where disagreement with progressive orthodoxy is treated not as a difference of opinion, but as a form of violence that justifies actual violence in response. They have convinced young people like Tyler Robinson that conservatives aren't just wrong. They are evil, and evil must be stopped by any measure necessary. This is why Charlie's death is about more than losing one conservative leader. It's about whether we're going to allow political terrorism to silence conservative voices in America. If the left can murder our most effective spokesman and face no real consequences, if they can intimidate the next generation of conservative leaders into silence, then they will have won without ever having to engage with our ideas. We cannot and will not let that happen. Charlie Kirk would be the first to tell us that the movement is bigger than any one person, that the principles we fight for are worth any sacrifice, and that backing down in the face of violence is exactly what our enemies want us to do. So, how do we honor Charlie Kirk's memory? How do we ensure that his death wasn't in vain? We do exactly what Charlie would do. We fight harder, speak louder, and engage more fearlessly than ever before. We support Turning Point USA as they continue Charlie's mission without him. We encourage young conservatives to start chapters on their own campus and to carry on the Prove Me Wrong tradition. We refuse to be intimidated by the threat of violence because backing down would dishonor everything Charlie stood for. Most importantly, we remember what Charlie understood better than almost anyone, that this fight isn't really about politics at all. It's about truth versus lies, freedom versus tyranny, good versus evil. Charlie Kirk died defending the idea that young Americans deserve to hear both sides of every argument, that conservative principles can withstand any challenge, and that America is worth fighting for. That's a legacy worth dying for, and it's certainly a legacy worth living for. Charlie Kirk was 31 years old when he was murdered. He should have decades ahead of him continuing to build the movement he started, to raise his children, to love his wife, and to keep fighting for the America he believed in. Instead, all of that was cut short by a radicalized young man who had been taught that disagreement justifies murder. But here's what Tyler Robinson and everyone like him will never understand. You can kill the messenger, but you can't kill the message. You can silence the voice, but you can't silence the truth. Charlie Kirk's ideas will outlive him. His movement will continue on without him, and his legacy will inspire conservatives for generations to come. Charlie Kirk died the way he lived, courageously standing up for what he believed in, refusing to back down in the face of opposition, and trusting that truth would ultimately prevail. He was a true American patriot, a devoted family man, a faithful Christian, and a fearless conservative warrior. We will miss his voice, his passion, his courage, and his unwavering commitment to the cause. But we will not let his death be in vain. We will carry on this fight. We will honor his memory, and we will make sure that the movement he built continues to grow and thrive. Rest in peace, Charlie. Thank you for showing us what courage looks like. Thank you for never backing down. Thank you for building something that will outlast us all. Patriots, that's our show for today. Share this episode with someone who needs to remember why we fight. Charlie Kirk's legacy belongs to all of us now. And it's up to us to make sure he never dies. This is John O'Connor. And Charlie Kirk would want us to keep fighting the good fight. Until next time, never forget what we're fighting for, and never forget Charlie Kirk.